What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nahh podcast. It's been over a month now, maybe almost 2 months since I've done an episode that is strictly based on MMA. And this weekend is Stipe versus Ngannou 2. So, of course, I have to do something for it. Got my coworker and good friend, Brian, with me. He's going to join me, give him his take. And only going to break down the main event, though. But yeah, just wanted to make sure I got something out. I promised a lot of people I was going to have a whole episode. That did not happen. But I'm going to get something out for y'all. But going into this matchup, Stipe, his last fight was against DC. The second fight with DC, third fight with DC, right? It was the third fight.
Yeah, yep.
And
tiebreaker.
He made that shit look flawless. DC definitely looked out of sync. He definitely looked slower. He looked his age.
He was washed.
There goes Brian.
Nah. He wasn't washed, but he wasn't prime DC by any means.
No, for sure. He just looked his age pretty much. Yeah. But so if you go off of that fight and you go off of Ngannou's last 4 fights, you were saying there was like a stat out there, right?
Yeah. So in Stipe's last fight, Stipe has logged more minutes in the octagon in his last fight than Ngannou has logged in his last 5 fights. Which, to me, I mean, I guess you could go either way, because you could, on the one hand, you could say, well, Stipe's got way more experience in there. He's been in deep waters a shitload of times, which all of that is fair. But at the same time, that wasn't necessarily an easy 5 rounds for him either. He's got way more miles on him than Francis does. So I could see it from both sides, but in my personal opinion, considering the way that Ngannou fights, I would say that that's probably an advantage. If he's not going to get him out of there in the beginning, he ain't going to get him out of there at all. So I would say the mileage probably works to his benefit for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because Stipe is pushing 40 almost. He's 38 now.
Yep.
Going on 39, and I mean, of course, Francis is also 35, I believe. So he's not, he's not young by any means, but he's a very athletic 35.
We ain't seen his birth certificate either. We don't know how old Ngannou is, to be honest with you.
Oh shit. But but going back to the Stipe and Ngannou first fight though, that was 3 years now.
Yeah.
Of course, Stipe knows exactly what he has to do. He has the perfect game plan. He just has to, lay that shit out and actually fucking, do it all over again. Yep. But with it being 3 years since the last time, father time is always undefeated. That motherfucker is undefeated. Yep. Of course, when Stipe fought DC is not as fast as Ngannou. You know what I mean? No. He's not as big as Ngannou. Nope. Maybe as strong as Ngannou with the wrestling background and shit, but definitely not as fast. Stipe, I mean, time is time. Stipe just got older, 3 years older since that last fight. No fucking possible way he's the same exact speed as that fight. Or, you know what I mean? The same timing. Like, the timing has to be off a little bit with age.
Not only that, he hasn't even been active. He
hasn't been active
Francis has had 5 fights since.
Yeah.
Stipe, he fought DC twice, and that's it. And each one of those, there was a year and a half in between them.
Yeah.
So.
But at the same time, with Ngannou, like, everyone's saying, well, not everyone, but him and his camp is saying they've been, training everything. They got everything down pat. His cardio is down pat. He's been training his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu, since the first fight is what they're saying. But every fight in between, like you said, it's gone less than a minute each fight.
He ain't never been in them deep waters.
He's never been in the deep water.
Well,
I mean,
and won.
Besides the first fight.
Yeah.
And like, 1 minute, he didn't go to the ground once. He didn't have to stuff one takedown.
No.
He didn't show us anything that he, evolved. Only thing he showed us is what he's been doing his whole career, before the Stipe fight. The only time he went over 2 rounds in the UFC was when he fought Derek Lewis, which was the shittiest fight ever. We're not going to talk about that.
It wasn't even a fight.
Yeah, it was
a staring contest.
But, yeah, I mean, that was the only time. And even that fight, he still looked a little winded by the, end of the 3rd round, by the end of the fight.
Yeah. But that's the real enemy, is his cardio, his conditioning. And Hopefully, I mean, it has been 3 years. Hopefully, he learned how to stuff a takedown because Stipe got him whenever he wanted him, and that was really the deciding factor. Ngannou hit Stipe with bombs in that fight, and Stipe took him.
Yeah, and like, I mean, of course, granted, when he hit him, it was in the later rounds, but still, when someone like Francis hits you, that should be it. But, you know, of course, when you're as muscular as he is, all that fucking muscle thrown around, like, he's gonna slow down. It's gonna fucking happen no matter what. Yeah. And this fight, I kind of see him taking it slow the first 2 rounds instead of trying to like get the finish in the first 2 rounds.
I see that too.
I think that's going to be a disadvantage for him.
Right. Exactly. Okay. I'm happy that we're on the same page. I think he's going to try
to come in smart,
because that's where Stipe's actual boxing skills. He's just going to his volume is far superior.
100%.
So if Francis thinks that he's going to just take the first 2 rounds off and just protect himself, I don't think that's going to work.
No, Stipe is going to grind him.
He's going to grind him. He's going to hit him with shots. Stipe's boxing is probably, I would say, among the top 10 legit boxing in heavyweight.
Oh, 100%.
That I've seen.
Top 5.
So, 100%. I mean, he's a Golden Gloves winner.
Yeah.
So, I just don't think that Ngannou has anything for him there.
He does,
except the overhand right.
Power shot.
In
the boxing department.
Yeah, in the boxing department, like he could get a shot off.
The only thing Francis has, I mean, his boxing is not even pretty. He
hits
monster.
hard.
Yeah, he's just a wrecking ball. It looks pretty when he knocks people out, but I mean, if you actually look at his striking, it's not the most cleanest. He doesn't put his guard back up after his punches and shit. And every time Stipe saw his punches coming, he ducked right under him and just got the takedown. He couldn't do nothing about it.
Yep. Stipe's head movement is
super
vastly
underrated.
Superior, and that's going to be problematic for Ngannou if he decides to take those first 2 rounds off, because undoubtedly that is what Stipe's working. He knows he's not going to have to defend a takedown. He knows he's not going to have to work off his back, any of that. So I would imagine that that's what he trained. So unless Ngannou finds a way to mix it up and work into his power shots and not just, rip them back to back to back like he has done in his last 5 fights, then I don't know. It's a tough call.
Honestly, if I predict Stipe coming in and straight up going for fucking takedowns right away. Not even try to fuck around with the striking this time.
Yep.
The first round in the first fight, he stood with him just to like feel him out and everything. This time, I don't think he's gonna take that chance. I think he's just gonna go in and straight up wrestle.
Yeah. And he's gonna have to smother him.
Exactly. Right away. Right a fucking way. And Ngannou, on the other hand, for some reason, I feel like he's gonna come in really like nervous.
No, he's before. Yes. I think Ngannou's biggest enemy in the fights that he's lost has been his mental.
100%.
I mean, you can't watch that Derek Lewis fight and tell me that he wasn't fucked up in his mind. His mind was not right.
Yeah.
And that was like the most winnable fight he had.
Exactly.
How you gonna fuck Curtis Blades up and then lose to Derek Lewis?
Exactly. And it's like when he first fight before, like leading up to it, he was so confident in himself that he was gonna knock Stipe out.
Yeah.
And
he was talking to Uncle Dana.
He got humbled. Yeah. And if you see his actions like in the press conference before that first fight and the press conference yesterday for this fight, he is a different man when it comes to his mentality of being humble at least.
I didn't catch that, but that's good
of
to
being
hear.
humble at least. You know what I mean? Because the first fight and the press conference, he was like just talking shit like, Stipe, tell him the truth, I'm gonna knock you out, you're scared, blah blah blah, you know what I mean, shit like that. This fight, none of that.
I think too, he was getting, and rightfully so, he is one of the more exciting guys to come around in the last 5 years.
100%.
He was getting that UFC rub, he was on the Toyo commercials, he was doing all of that stuff that usually precedes somebody getting knocked the fuck out. That's what happens to all of these people.
Once you start talking like that, it's just what it is. It's a never-ending cycle. It's gonna keep fucking happening. But so
I'm still picking them though.
Yeah, that's what's gonna go into it. Going into our picks, as much as I can see Stipe coming in and just grinding it out and doing the same exact game plan, for some reason, I just feel like his timing is going to be a little off. 3 years is still 3 years. I know he's Stipe, but 3 years is still 3 years, and Francis has not slowed down in his speed of his strikes. So
he has only gotten better. Stipe, we don't know where he's at.
I don't want to say he's gotten better. He's just been the same, but he hasn't slowed down. You know what I mean?
Well, what have Ngannou's last fights been? He fought Curtis Blades again, wrecked him.
Curtis, Junior Dos Santos, Alistair, and Kane.
Okay. I would say out of all of those guys,
it all finished the same though.
It all finished the same, but out of all of those guys,
never stuff to take down.
Overeem to me represents probably the best of what's left of those guys now. You know what I mean? Like versus Kane and JDS, those dudes are pretty spent. Like at least Overeem was still in the mix.
This is also true. Like all of those dudes were, 2 of them's not even in the UFC anymore.
Overeem,
3 of them's not in the UFC anymore.
Right. Overeem's out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
Kane, Overeem, and Junior.
But the deal with Overeem is, unlike them other guys, he evolved and was constantly adding new things to his game. So in that sense, he's probably the best approximation of Miocic that we have.
Right.
Because both of those guys are pretty complete fighters. Like Stipe does it all. He doesn't do it all great.
Right.
But that's Overeem
it
too.
all up.
He mixes
tries.
it up.
Overeem tries. I mean, he mixes it up. It's all on, matchups make fights, like I always say.
Yeah.
Like the fights where Overeem looked really good, those were fights he should have looked good in. Like his fight against Stefan Struve, it should have never went any other fucking way.
Although as I
fights
recall,
like that,
Overeem was looking okay versus Ngannou until he got KO'd.
For the most part.
Like he was holding his own.
Yeah,
he was
just
it up.
sticking and moving.
Yeah.
And then he just got
Which
clipped,
is what you got to do.
Which is how I kind of see this fight ending.
Right.
To end off the episode, to end off the video, going into our picks. As much as I want to see Stipe win, not that I wanted, they're both likable dudes. I don't really care who wins, but as much as I see Stipe going in to do his thing, same thing as the first fight, the time's gonna catch up to him, and I think this is it. And Francis clips him in the first or second round. Even if Francis goes in and tries to play a smart game plan, I still think he still clips him in the first or second round.
Yeah. I'm on the same page. I think Ngannou is going to, over the last 3 years since they fought, I do think he's worked on his wrestling. I think if he hasn't been training takedown defense for the last 3 years, then it's just like...
Exactly. It's not going to happen overnight.
It's a failure of the system. I think Francis has the benefit of having the UFC behind him. The UFC does not want Stipe to be the champ no more.
That's a fact. They've wanted Francis to be
They've wanted Francis since the day they saw him.
Exactly.
So he's got that behind him. He's got that rub. And that counts for something, I think. And I just think, Stipe's almost 40. Ngannou, we don't really know how old he is, but if we counted the rings, if we cut off one of his tree trunks and counted the rings, I bet it'd probably be around 30. But yeah, I do think he's gonna get his shot off. I think he's gonna be able to defend a takedown. I pray, and I think the same. I think he's gonna get it done probably the first or second round.
But of course, if Stipe wins, it's gonna be by a dominant decision win.
100%.
Or a TKO on the ground.
Volume.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a big head. You'd have to hit him so
No,
hard
not
to
like knock him out, just like the ref stops it.
Okay.
He can't get up,
like
and he's
TKO.
just getting battered on the ground.
I could see that, but again, I got to go with Francis. He's the fresher fighter. And I think he wants this badly. He's
a different fighter, like I said, from like in a mentality standpoint. He's not full of himself anymore, and he's been humbled, and he does not want it to happen again.
Yeah.
But I just think he clips him and gets it done this time. But like I said earlier, both very likable guys. I'm a fan of both of them. Don't really care who wins in that sense, but it should be a good fight up until something fucking happens.
And Ngannou, I understand his English better than Stipe, so he'd be a nice champ. I don't speak caveman.
But thank you guys for tuning in. Brian, thank you for joining me, my brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Now, we're on a lunch break now. We got to go back to work.
Yep, back to the grime.
Thanks for joining. See you guys later. Enjoy the fights. Today's Friday. New episode of What the Fuck Happened in Sports should be tonight. So, look forward to that, too.
Enjoy the violence.